Welcome, everyone. Oh, what an exciting day it has been so far. I want to welcome everyone to the 2022 Urban League of Louisiana Empowerment and Policy Conference. Again, we've had such a wonderful day already at the top of the day, and we are excited to be here for one of the concurrent sessions to talk about entrepreneurship and business ownership. So I am Klassi, Duncan. I serve as the Vice President for the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation at the Urban League of Louisiana. I'm so thrilled, so excited to have this wonderful panel with me here today to talk about Black and Latinx entrepreneurship and business ownership. So today we are going to dig in deep. We're going to dig in deep on an issue that is very important to us here at the Urban League of Louisiana, the support and development of our Black and Brown entrepreneurs and small businesses. You know, today, what we want to really do is hone in on the challenges as well as the opportunities that are impacting our Black and Brown businesses across the state, not just in the New Orleans area, but across the state of Louisiana. And the intention is really to spark ideas and really specific actions that can be made to create progress and change. And so on this panel, we have a small business owner, we have some dynamic business leaders who support small businesses. And what they're going to do is share what they're seeing within the Black and Latinx communities around entrepreneurship, as well as some of the policies that are needed to better support these businesses. So I want to start by introducing you to our panelists. It's wonderful to see you guys. Everyone is looking beautiful. I want to just give an opportunity for our panelists to say hi before we jump into the conversation. Up first, we have Ms. Lindsay Navarro, who is the Executive Director of Centro. Lindsay.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Really excited to share a little bit about what we do and to answer and field some of those heavy questions.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lindsay. And Ms. Mayra Pineda, the President and CEO of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Louisiana. Mayra?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and congratulations to the Urban League for the amazing program today. I'm looking forward to this conversation and sharing with the other panelists.
Thank you, Mayra. And Mr. John Winthrop. John is the CEO and Brewmaster at Cajun Brewing. He's also, I'm proud to say, a client of the Urban League of Louisiana and a graduate of our Scale Up Louisiana program. So happy to have you here, John. I want to give a couple of remarks.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I appreciate the opportunity that Urban League has presented with this platform, and I'm happy for everyone that's attending this much needed conversation.
Awesome, awesome. So let's get down to it. So we've all seen kind of this elevated focus on supporting Black and Brown businesses, and we like what we've seen. But with movements like, you know, the Buy Black gaining traction, also here at the Urban League of Louisiana, we've partnered with many organizations and companies, with, for example, the PepsiCo Foundation, where we administer a Black Restaurant Accelerator program. We partnered with Google to offer complimentary Google Nest storefront kits to support security and COVID-safe environments for Black-owned businesses, and the Black Business Works Fund, which is a grants program to support Black-owned businesses across the states that have been impacted by Hurricane Ida. And I know Centro also has targeted initiatives for the Latinx community, the Camino Financiero initiative that you all have with Metairie Bank, and also the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, you know, your partnership with Entergy to provide grants to Hispanic-owned businesses that were impacted by Hurricane Ida. But we all know this. We know that there is so much work that still needs to be done for our businesses to really thrive. And I know here at the Urban League, you know, we know that creating generational wealth through entrepreneurship is really going to be based on our businesses becoming profitable and becoming scalable. And so we're here today to explore some of the systemic changes, some of the opportunities, challenges that will move the needle in making this happen. So let's jump in. Let's jump into the conversation. John, let's start with you. Let's start by hearing about your experience in launching and growing a small business here in the city of New Orleans. Can you share with us some of the key points of your entrepreneurial journey to create Cajun Fire, and what you've and how your business, any of the opportunities that you saw, the challenges of getting your business off the ground. Can you share some of that experience with us?
Absolutely. So my company, we're still very much on a journey. I feel like it's an ever evolving journey with, of course, new obstacles, but also new opportunities, new milestones. We just hit our 10-year anniversary. And it's, when you operate in a business, it's like dog years. I feel like our company is now 50 years old. Just to kind of give you a landscape of the industry space that we operate in. We are very much in a white male dominated industry. There are 9,000 plus craft breweries in operation in the US. We occupy a space of only 60 that's Black owned. From there, when you bust it down and go to the Louisiana local sector, we happen to be the only African American or Native American owned brewing company in operation in US history in the South. So, when we got started, there was all kind of different obstacles. There's still very much a lot of different obstacles to entry. We have to encounter all kind of lingering systemic policies, particularly from the Jim Crow era. Prohibition played a lot of effects into how we operate, but it's not just limited to that. You have like land ownership settlements that you have to try to overcome. You have currently redistricting that's impacting my industry and our efforts. And then, you have everything in between. To be honest with you, everything that can be weaponized and aimed at your business is there, dead and center. So, that's kind of it in a nutshell. We are progressing pretty good, but it's only due to organizations like Urban League and other nonprofits that are there to assist and provide us resources and also guidance as we navigate, these new areas of concern.
Absolutely. And can you tell us where your offices are located? Tell us where your products are located. I just want everybody to know a little bit more about who you are as an organization.
So right now we're actually operating. We're headquartered in New Orleans East, Deer Park condominiums to be exact. That's where I'm recording from right now. We're also developing in District E, a 10-acre area land, which we have site control of. That's right adjacent to the Six Flags development, Bayou Phoenix. Our location is called the New Orleans East Culture Hub. I happen to be the COO of that operation. And, we're trying to, we are creating a manufacturing base. To date, we've had 500 plus loads of fill put in. We're operating independently. And that goes into another aspect with access to capital or lack of. And, we're just trying to power through. We're available right now in 7 different states. And by far, just to kind of close out, Louisiana is the most difficult state to operate in that I've experienced.
Yeah, but I think that's important to note. So I wanted everybody to know, about where you've brought the business from startup all the way to being offered in 7 states and working on a manufacturing facility. And so those are, we are proud of the work that you have done. And also congratulate you on being able to be resilient and overcome a lot of obstacles to get to where you are. And we know that there's more work to do, but I wanted folks to hear that so they can understand about the process that you are in terms of growing your business and scaling your business. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Miss Lindsay Navarro. Lindsay, now, you are a small business owner, but you provide services to support small businesses and provide technical assistance support to other entrepreneurs. And so can you tell us what you're seeing from your clients? Are they growing? What are some of the common roadblocks that you're seeing within the Latinx community for our small businesses?
Yeah, so first I want to start, I founded the organization now 4 years ago. I did the math recently, and so time flies. John's
Congratulations.
He's definitely right about dog years. It feels a lot longer than what it actually is. I started the organization after working in microfinance for about 7 years. And I realized that I had a skill set in financial literacy that I really wanted to apply to my community. I felt it was more important to educate folks on how to access capital, how to make financial decisions when operating their business. And then I also just really wanted to do business consulting. It was just my dream job. And I finally had the skill set to be able to do that on my own. And so the organization started after we received some seed funding from the Mexican consulate. And we started by operating their financial literacy window, which meant that we were hosting bi-weekly workshops. And I was providing a lot of the one-on-one technical assistance to what was my past clients, right? They were existing customers of mine already, that I then was able to begin coaching. I would say that the customer that we serve today is very mom and pop. It's a micro business. Typically, they're self-employed. They're employing a spouse, a significant other, a best friend, or their children within their businesses. And so we're seeing people who want to employ more. So we're really working with those micro businesses and we're realizing that a lot of folks are hiring incorrectly, that they may not have, they're treating staff as 1099 or as independent contractors when they should be hiring them as actual employees. And then as far as industry goes, it's really a variety. I was actually doing the numbers yesterday, and we had a large number of folks in construction, lots of people who are opening food and beverage businesses, from food trucks to catering to bakeries. We've had a request from people who want to open tortillerias, which would be awesome because the nearest tortillerias are actually in Houston. So there's a variety, I would say, of customer that comes through our door, and the needs are just extremely great. And our programming has really grown to include financial literacy, just because we've realized that if someone can't manage their personal finances, it's going to be very difficult for them to also understand the principles of business management. So we kind of have that two-prong approach to all of the coaching that we do. And so now we have a multi-month, like a 2-month program where we teach people how to read their credit reports. We explain to them what the difference is between a line of credit and what a business loan is, and also the other financial products that exist out there for them. Because I think what's common knowledge is that there exist checking accounts and savings accounts. But when we start talking about CDs and money market accounts or lines of credit versus loans and what the different usages are, or even how those decisions are made by lenders so that people can properly qualify. I think most times people think that the decision is being made based solely on their credit or solely on their tax returns, and they don't realize the importance of the connection that one has to the next, right? And so within that programming, we've taught people what lenders are looking for, right? I'm sharing our trade secrets.
Oh, this is good. This is great.
How lenders make those decisions so that people can properly position themselves. And then the organization has now grown into, we host a VITA site. So now we're currently doing tax preparation also for low income individuals or people whose income is below $58,000 a year. And so we're dedicated to solely serving the Latino community there. And it turns out that we're part of a coalition of about 39 other organizations who also operate what we call VITA sites in the greater New Orleans area. And so they're doing that for English speakers. And so I think that the community is growing. I think that the need then with the growth of the community comes the increase in need that we see from those people. And so the goal is really to just address their need and to meet our community where they are.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. And I remember when you launched El Centro, and it's amazing to see, just the progress and the number of businesses that you're supporting. And so hats off to you and your team for all the work that you're doing to support our Latinx community. So I definitely say hats off to you.
Thank you.
And Miss Mayra Pineda, Miss Mayra, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Louisiana, what can you share with us about the state of Hispanic-owned businesses across Louisiana, and what are your priorities in response to what you're seeing?
Well, thank you, Klassi. I think our mission is more relevant than ever right now. You and I have worked in this space for many years and know what the barriers and the gaps that we've experimented, in the community and the business community in particular have been. But I think COVID-19 came to really highlight those disparities. And now we're very laser focused in addressing them. As the largest Hispanic organization, business organization in the state, we are, multi-layered and do, business training. We do our work through networking, education, procurement, advocacy, and all of those are very important. But right now, in order to assist our business community, we need to provide them with the tools and resources that they need to really scale and prepare them for the opportunities that are coming down the pipeline. Because we all hear the news about, millions and billions of dollars here and there, but we want to make sure as a local chamber of commerce that our business owners are prepared to access those opportunities. So what we're seeing is, yes, we have a business community that is still struggling and hurting, but we are a resilient, talented, and hardworking community that is also very entrepreneurial and one of the fastest growing in the nation. Over 400,000 businesses with at least one employee. So we are going to work very hard to access those opportunities for them.
Awesome. Yeah. And I know that you guys, again, with your work across the state, you have visibility into kind of understanding what the challenges and the opportunities are for the small business community. So I thank you for all of the work that you and your organization are doing to elevate this type of conversation, but also to, again, provide and link those businesses up to the resources that they need. So
and one thing
awesome
we've
stuff, Mayra.
seen, one thing what we've seen is that COVID also brought that that realization to the business owner that it was important to be connected to a network, that it was important to be informed about the resources, and that's what we've been doing, making sure that they get correct information from trusted sources and collaborating with other partners that provide services as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that we work, all of us in terms of our entrepreneurial ecosystem, we always encourage businesses to tap into at least one technical assistance partner, economic development agency, chamber organization. If you can tap into one, right, you can be connected to the entrepreneurial ecosystem across the state, because that's how closely we work together. Because we know that we're not in it to do the work alone. We know that it will take a community to support small businesses, to get the information and the resources that they need into their hands. And so again, just awesome work that's being done there.
And what you mentioned about Unidos, and it's, making sure that our businesses understand the importance, and I think many of them learned it the hard way, how technology is going to help their businesses grow, how financial literacy, understanding their financials, having a banking relationship, working in that area very diligently is going to help their businesses grow, and just being prepared for the new environment that is right. That is here. That's right. Preparation, right? Absolutely. And so let's jump into some questions around what we're seeing across the state in terms of our Black and brown businesses. So I'll start this question off with John. In your opinion, across the state, has the opportunity gap for Black and brown small businesses persisted, and why? Why do you think that is, if it has?
It's not only persisted, it's actually seen a negative, like a negative downward spiral, with the onset of COVID, and even predating that, all evidence points to a deficit. And, it's almost like, a lot of organizations are passive with the need to gather information versus produce anything tangible to absorb some of those losses. So, I just don't, I don't know how optimistic I can be. I know there are things that need to be done, and it should be an all hands on approach. It should be some executive orders that's put in place, particularly with policy, to adhere to some of those losses that we're seeing, and it's quite devastating. I mean, I'm going to drop a Tulane University study that they conducted after the onset of COVID, which showed and highlighted that and spoke it into volume about just how much PPP allocations were given to
That's right.
businesses. When you looked at the total scale of things, only 2% went to minority-owned businesses, and that's a shared pie. That you're talking females of all ethnicities under that minority or people of color scope, but for 2%. and largely a lot of those loans were forgivable. So, you know, we definitely got left behind as far as access to those resources. And, you know, just to kind of further paint the landscape, I know particularly in Orleans Parish, when you look at the total revenues generated to minority-owned businesses, that's only a reflection of 2% of that. So, I mean, that's like, you know, 2% is 2%. However you cut it, you're getting taxed more than you're receiving.
That's right. Thank you for that. And you're absolutely right. You know, there are a lot of systemic issues that, of course, we have not closed the gap, right? And so I thank you for that insight into your experience. I want to hear from Lindsay too. What do you think on the opportunity gap from Black and Brown?
I would say, I mean, the opportunity gap has persisted, and it's also been exacerbated by the situation. And I think just that, I don't know, I wish things could happen faster. I wish solutions could be provided faster. I wish people would force themselves to think outside of the box. I think that when the pandemic happened and the SBA announced that they would make EIDL loans available and PPP loans available, my instant thought was there are a ton of people who are hiring independent contractors who aren't going to be eligible for PPP loans, but have 3 to 10 people on payroll or as labor who aren't going to be eligible for some of this funding that's necessary. And I think that while it was great that it was rolled out as fast as it was, because that was a miracle in and of itself, that's how I feel, right? Coming from a financial institution and knowing how long it typically takes to go through the process, I thought it was amazing that they could jump into action the way they did. But then at the same time, I also felt like, wow, this is the time to tap into your advisory council and people who are actual business owners who can say, like, this is how this product should have been created. Right. And so to exclude some folks or to say that this payroll support was available, realizing that a lot of businesses had really people as 1099 employees and as contractors, you know, they should have been eligible for some of this funding. And I think some of the folks who were helping with applications were able to like maneuver the system and to say, like, we can make this happen. But then you also run the risk at the end of the day of the SBA coming back and auditing some of these loan requests, and then realizing that a lot of things were done like in error and in haste, right? Pre-approved in haste, and then you'd have lots of regrets at the end of the day. So, I mean, I think that, and I think that there were some financial institutions who were really quick. I think where we saw a challenge was for a lot of the customers that we had are ITIN holders. So they're taxpayers, but they're not US citizens. And so they immediately weren't eligible for some of this funding. And so we were tasked with finding a financial institution who would make an exception to the rules. And lucky for us, Hope Credit Union was willing to make PPP loans to ITIN holders. They weren't able to do EIDL loans, right? Because the EIDL loans were directly through the SBA and that wasn't an option. But I mean, it was suddenly, you know, the light went off for me that there are millions, you know, of people who are paying taxes who, when the government should be aiding them the most, they aren't able to access it because of their citizenship status or their migration status, which is to me unjust. A business owner is a business owner. They create jobs, they create a tax base. And so they should, again, as John was saying, have access to that revenue when they need it the most.
Absolutely. Mayra, what are your thoughts on this?
Absolutely. And just to dovetail on what Lindsay said, you know, the Hispanic community, we have an added layer of barriers between language, immigration status, culture itself. You know, the business owners that come from Central and South America are not used to governments, you know, giving out anything for free. So there's that, you know, cultural recognition that, oh, is this something that I should be doing, or is there a trick behind it? But it's important, and again, that's why it's important that we try to address those barriers that kept many people from accessing the loans. And yes, it was done so quickly and just trying to get money out in the field that thought was not put behind, you know, the people that had different situations. So it's important that we address those moving forward. And but absolutely agree with John and with Lindsay, the gap exists. The gap, we've seen it, and it's been there for generations. So we need to hold people accountable to create policies and processes that will address the gap. And work together, because this is not a job for the chamber or just for the Urban League or just for one, or we need to all work together. And that's why, you know, those collaborations are so important, so key and critical.
And I would just even add, you know, if we looked at it, not just at the national level, right, but if we looked at it even on the local level or at the state level, I think we had issues here with unemployment. Right, people who were self-employed had not been paying towards self-employment, so they weren't eligible for unemployment, having been business owners for the longest time. And I think the more I work with businesses, the more I realize how much I don't know, right? And doing this for so many years, and it's like the more we work with folks, the more we realize here's really the importance of paying unemployment. And, or I mean, it's just, I really wish the state, it was unfortunate that the only funding available for those who were unemployed, who were self-employed in the state we were dependent on federal dollars for that. And that should not be the case, right? And that's a policy that should definitely be revisited, because it's just unjust when you're forced to close your own business as a business owner.
Right. And I think, like you said, you know, there's so much that, you know, even as technical assistance providers, we don't know until an event in a pandemic, you know, like COVID comes along, or another major hurricane comes along, that we learn more and more each time. And so I think that it's so important for us to be, you know, thinking through these things, exploring these avenues, these topics. But you know, what I think, you know, is important is that we make sure that we're noting these things and taking them back to those policymakers, decision makers, and agencies, government agencies, to make sure, because, you know, what we do know is that, one, you know, while things are moving along in a positive way, we're not out of the woods on COVID. You know, in terms of disasters, we know that Ida, you know, wasn't the first, and it won't be the last. And so as we look to, you know, create, you know, the systemic changes, what we need to be focused on is making sure that we bring this information, the lessons learned, the things going right, the things going wrong, back to our legislators, because they should be working with, again, stakeholders in the community to move these issues forward. And so thank you guys for that. Really great information and insight there. So, you know, and let me give my take on it. I do think that we have made some progress, but we have a long way to go. And I think that when we talk about, you know, have the issues persisted? Yes, the gaps have persisted, because, you know, it's the same reason why, you know, we're not further along in closing the racial wealth gap in politics, in the financial sector, in manufacturing, and health equity. The systemic barriers are still there. Right. Mm-hmm. So we have a long way to go in making sure that we're creating systems that don't continue to disenfranchise our Black and Brown communities. And that's at every level. And so, of course, entrepreneurship is no different. And so we want to make sure, you know, one example is on the banking side, right? You know, outside of, if you have a firm, outside of, you know, controlling factors like firm characteristics and performance, you know, we know through the work that we do, Black-owned businesses are still 20% less likely than their white counterparts to obtain a loan from a bank. It's those types of things that we still need to make sure that we are addressing and putting in place policy and mechanisms for transparency. And so, you know, what I can say is that with some of the examples that we gave earlier, you know, we're still seeing more organizations, more companies, and I would say both public and private, really honing in on the types of things that we're here throughout this conference to discuss. And that's the systems change piece, right? That's the creating equitable opportunities and accountability. And so we're seeing more of that. Again, we have a long way to go, but I think that we are at least starting to move the needle to start to touch on some of these things. So my next question. What can local, state, and federal governments and the private sector, I want to talk about them too, do to further encourage entrepreneurship and market growth? Let's start off with you, Lindsay. What are our local, state, and federal governments?
Oh, that's heavy.
Yeah. Let's dig in.
Yeah, I would say, so from the community organizer perspective, which I am not, I think the key to reaching the community is some of that grassroots work that it takes. It takes stepping out of your office, meeting with people, like truly hosting conversations with the community, like leveraging your community leaders to really identify what changes need to be made. Because I can tell you this, I think if someone from the state or federal government said, Lindsay, we want your opinion, I am all in on that meeting, right? But if I'm the one who has to request the meeting through like 5 other people just to get there, there's a much bigger barrier to making that change. And I think that leadership has to be willing and able to reach out to their community and to leverage those leaders who are rising, who are becoming visible in their communities, to ask for their opinions and ask for them to help better inform their decisions. And I would say that if you're one of those people who sees yourself as in that realm of opportunity, don't say no. We need you to step up too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like that. So getting our legislators to be more, engaged at the community level, to hear from, constituents, to hear from small business owners, to hear from technical assistance providers, economic development organizations, being more on the ground, to hear direct from the folks that are trying to move entrepreneurship forward. So I like that. I hear it, and I'm going to make a note of it, because I'm in my mind, I'm developing a list of what is it that we want? What is it that we need?
Yeah, and I can't tell if I muted myself. I would add, recently I received a postcard from, I think, I want to say from my local representative. And the postcard actually had, we want to know your opinion about these specific things. And so she was actually letting her constituents know what was being voted on, and she was requesting feedback, and it was a prepaid postcard. And I was like, oh, I'm going to answer this, and I'm going to tell her exactly what my number one issue is. And I just thought I was like, wow, why don't more people do this? I think we get a lot of mail when people are running for office, but when people are in office, they kind of start ghosting us, right? They start ghosting phone calls. They send you to voicemail. And not that this becomes that like complaint fest, but I mean, it was really cool to have a local representative reach out to me and say, what's important to you? And I just thought, I was like, if all of the representatives did this, I mean, I think we'd be in a much better place.
Yeah, lessen that communication barrier, outside of campaign season. Yeah, I love it.
Absolutely. And especially for when it comes to the Hispanic community, or one of them are minorities, don't come to, try and tape an ad in Spanish because you're running for office. We want you there the whole time.
That's right.
And removing the barriers, like John said, it's so hard to do business, for an entrepreneur that is investing its lifelong savings in this business, to say that it hurts, because this is his passion and his all, and we should make it easy for an entrepreneur to do business in Louisiana. So we need to remove those barriers and see the community as a whole. We're all part of this community: Black, Asian, Hispanic, and white. We're all together, and we should legislate for all.
Absolutely. John, any thoughts on this?
Got a lot. I wrote down some things so I didn't get lost and start rambling, but accountability. That's, I think we just need a total behavioral shift on how we treat voting. Like, there's no follow through with voting. It's just go to the polls. There's a whole, like you mentioned, a pandering to get you going, and even cultural appropriation that's thrown in the mix. And after the voting day, it's no follow through, and we just don't hold our representatives to the fire, like, to make sure they're accountable for some of the things that they promise, and also to make sure they exceed on their execution. It just requires us to not be retroactive and be more proactive in our response, or should I say more demanding instead of just asking. No one gets anywhere by asking for anything. You have to literally demand, and that's the only way you can get things done, just by that level of intentionality.
What do you guys think about the private sector? Anything in the space of, of course, there's more work that needs to be done on the state and federal government side. in terms of legislation, policy priorities. What about on the private sector? What do you see as some of the things that the private sector here in Louisiana can be doing to further encourage entrepreneurship and market growth?
Definitely procurement, access to procurement and contracts, making sure that their purchasing departments, their human resources are very in tune with diversity, equity, and inclusion policies, and making sure that they're holding them accountable, making sure that they have goals in, raising their percentages, from one year to the next, because quite frankly, we see some companies that are very engaged and very intentional in those areas, but others have it as policies, but are not, really, walking the line. And I think that would make a huge difference locally and nationally. When you're helping, when their supply chain includes these small business owners that can provide services and products for companies.
Absolutely. Lindsay, any thoughts on the private sector? Oh, John.
I don't want to break up the flow. You go ahead.
That's fine. That's
okay.
Totally fine.
So one company that's a large company that I think has executed, and from my own experiences with my business has given us opportunities to compete, is Walmart. They have a pretty intensive DEI program where they mandate your products, and a lot of times, just because the ownership isn't there, when you're talking about large retailers and box stores, you need that national push to get you in those spaces. Normally we don't have the relationships, and we're definitely not given the opportunity. So you need those national mandates to really get your product where it's enforced, that your product be visible and given an opportunity to compete. Target also has a DEI initiatives as well. Trader Joe's, that's another corporation that we work with, that we partner with, that has given us opportunity to be visible and be present. So, there's many more, but that's the ones I know that have gone up and beyond to deliberately be intentional to get our products in that space. And, I'm not on the contracting side, but bids also, that's something that policy can influence. And, it's not too much of a stretch of the bandwidth for that to be provisions put in place that allow more access to those kind of contracts, because that's where you're talking about the real quality of life jobs are at. And we constantly building from I-10 to 610 to 510, there's always construction.
Yeah. Lindsay, any thoughts on that, on the private piece?
Yeah, I think I don't even know where to. I honestly don't know where to start. I feel it might take some public shaming to get the private sector to truly change. I mean, I think when I think of private sector, I also think about small businesses and how they can also, diversify who they rely on for supplies and for products and those things too. Which can be challenging, I think, on the smaller businesses and their ability to do that just because of cost. It can be cost prohibitive for them. But I think that on the larger side, right, on the larger private industry side, when we're thinking about those bigger businesses, I think that they hear a lot the power of of the consumer, right? And I think we've seen the power of the person in action. I think since 2020 a lot, and then the power that consumers have when it comes to purchasing, and when they choose not to purchase from businesses that are not inclusive or don't reflect, their products don't reflect the markets that they want to serve or the markets that they want to be in. So I think that, I think I've seen a few organizations who do some grading of those private industry businesses to say, this person does a really great job at it, you need to do this too, and setting the standard. And I think that conversation is probably, it's important to have all the way across the table, right? From the big to the small, so that everyone's practicing it.
Right. And I think that as a state, we have some work to be done in that monitoring, right, of the progress that businesses, and I want to say not just your large corporations, but also your mid-sized businesses.
Mhm.
There is still a lot of work to be done in terms of one, the transparency of, and the, just the, like you said, is there a way for us to really even know if they have very intentional programs around diversity and inclusion, right? And for many of them, they do not. But there is no mechanism to hold them accountable to put one in place. And
Right.
so, I think when it comes into the private sector, we do need to be looking at more of our large corporations, which have done a pretty good job in terms of, having a program in place. Now is the time to be more creative around their sourcing policies and processes. Things like more favorable payment terms, debundling of contracts, those types of things for our larger corporations. But also, again, we cannot lose sight of those mid-sized businesses, which, in some regards, you can they're upwards in a couple of million, several $100 million a year. Those businesses should also be held to the fire in terms of their supplier diversity, in terms of their procurement practices and workforce diversity policies. But also, to your point, around, looking at our small businesses, because as you said, the small businesses are part of the private sector too, right?
Mhm.
So we definitely know that as a strategy of building capacity, we want our smaller businesses to do business with their peers, with other small businesses. That's how you build capacity. That's how you, as I say, knock out the kinks, right? Before you start to work with some of these and bid on some of these larger opportunities. But we should definitely all, especially our small business owners, be looking at how we ourselves should be looking at diversity practices within our organization. So I appreciate those remarks from all of you. So let's talk about some policy changes, and I'm keeping tabs on the time. Let's talk about some policy changes to, what are, in your opinion, one or two policy changes that will increase the number of minority-owned businesses. What would it be and why? Mayra, you want to kick us off?
Definitely, tax bases would be one important one for those small businesses. At the end of the day, and I know many people right now have this on their mind with the Federal Reserve announcing a raise in taxes. So I think that would be one area to really focus on and try and help small businesses. One practice that I really loved during COVID was how we came together, and you mentioned about bringing the conversation and letting our policymakers know what the needs were at the at the grassroots of the community. And I think if we do more of that, and many great ideas and solutions came about quickly because of all of the thoughts and contributions from different sectors. I think we need to do more of that. I don't know exactly how it would work, but as far as another policy, in my world, definitely some kind of immigration reform, more equitable structure for education for families, Hispanic families, recently arrived Hispanic families, so that they have, that welcome structure in schools, and that their children are positioned to succeed, and instead of falling behind, from the beginning. Also, just access to resources and opportunities, access to healthcare, access to making sure our banking system supports small businesses, and that there is some kind of way for them to work with create that relationship with the banking community. Those would be policies that I would think are important right now.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And take advantage of this time, because yes, there is a focus in Black and Hispanic communities, but we need help in order to thrive.
That's
And
right.
some changes need to be made.
That's right. That's right. Lindsay, Anything here?
Yeah, I would, I think to echo some of Mayra's sentiments, and in addition to, I would state, I think one of the biggest challenges that we see our businesses, the business owners that we're currently working with have is many are ITIN holders, again, as I mentioned. So their immigration status may be slightly opaque, better said. And so immigrants in the state aren't allowed to have driver's licenses. And so there are somewhere between 16 and 19 other states that have enabled or made it possible for immigrants, regardless of their citizen or immigration status, to access a driver's license. If they can drive in their own countries, they should be able to drive here, right? So these driving laws are not that different. And so I think what we see a lot of folks do, and I think we see a lot of people who are leery of even applying or formalizing their businesses because they're being required to provide a driver's license that they can't produce. And so I think that in and of itself, right, it's not necessarily a fight for immigration law, which should be changed. Immigration laws definitely need to be adjusted, tweaked, reformed. There should be a clear path to citizenship, in particular for those who are paying taxes. That's the case that we make with our customers as far as their reasoning for their need to pay taxes. And I mean, I think that there should just be that clear path available to them. But I mean, it also starts within our state too, and making it available and making it possible for these individuals who are employing themselves to legally get to and from work, right?
And it can even be a revenue source for the state, because these people are going across the border to get to Texas or to Mississippi to get wherever they can get a document instead of leaving those dollars in the state.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Good insights. John, anything here?
I got a couple policies, I think, and we're not on Facebook, so I don't have to worry about going to Facebook jail. But number one policy, Louisiana is the oldest state. I mean, you got 300 plus years. It has a debt that is owed to Black Americans that reparations could very much solve. I think everything else is a Band-Aid, and a Band-Aid on a flesh wound. Reparations is a product that the U.S. government can administer and the federal government can administer, as we've seen with the quick release of funds during COVID. And as we're seeing with continual world crisis, they have a debt to Black Americans, particularly with the history of Jim Crow, currently the push for redistricting that doesn't represent the constituents of the state. It's an ongoing fallout from that long, treacherous history that still impacts, everything in our way of life today. I think that's number one. I sometimes just call it repair rations, so I don't get kicked out. Redistricting is number two. Those policies that's going on right now. Thankfully, the governor had avoided the first pass at that bill, but man, it's so much discouraging things that's in it that just further highlights the disparities and the continual need to have all these different vices aimed at our communities, respectively.
That's right.
So that's my two. If I had a genie wish,
Awesome. And I think we'd be remiss if we did not talk about the infrastructure bill, right? Which is slated to inject about 1.2 trillion into the economy. And so, the infrastructure, what we do know, it's going to be a unique opportunity for Black and brown businesses. And really can be leveraged, as we look to continue to scale our businesses, to continue to build wealth in our communities. And so what we know is that the organizations, right, infrastructure agencies are going to be looking to procure goods and services to deliver on these federal investments. And so, as we look at the racial wealth gap, we need to be looking at really deliberate policies for the inclusion of Black and brown businesses when it comes to the infrastructure dollars that are coming down. And so we gotta, look at not only diversifying with Black and brown businesses, but also looking at the types of businesses, right? So whether it's financial services, legal, advertising, those types of professional services, looking at other fields in terms of the needs to support those infrastructure initiatives and looking at how we diversify and really make sure in a very deliberate way through policy to make sure that, again, our Black and brown businesses get access to those dollars.
And if I could say something as well to piggyback on that, Klassi, like the self-determination that entrepreneurs endure really opens up the doors for the quality of life in every direction. The thing that we talk about, the supply chain, it's almost like it's left ambiguous. The supply chain is a makeup of small independent entrepreneurs starting businesses from scratch. If you don't have supply diversity at that level and empower business owners, then you don't have a community, you don't have access to these different resources that come from having your own banks, having your own freight companies. You have to create that community, and there should be some policies that deliberately, intentionally are aimed at fostering that versus only having the counter, which is policies aimed at negating that. So that's right. So we got a couple of minutes. I want to hear from you. I'm going to check the chat real quick to see if we have any comments from our participants, any questions. And as we do that, I'm going to prepare and thanks for adding those resources, John. And if there are any other resources that anyone wants to share, please feel free to include them in the chat, and we'll make sure to make record of them. But as we go to closing, I want to make sure that the small businesses that are on in the audience, that they know how to access some of the resources that we've talked about here today. And I also want to share, how you can have a voice, how you can let your voice be heard through organizations like the Urban League, through organizations like the Hispanic Chamber and El Centro. So to our panelists, what resources should people be aware of? Let's just start there. What resources and how can they access them? How do they get to them? We'll start with you, Lindsay.
Okay, so are you talking about me sharing my resources?
Yep.
All right, great. So the easiest way to reach us is probably via email or our website, www.elcentrola.org. You can shoot us an email, info@elcentrola.org, and then we're also extremely available via social media, Facebook. Anyone can call our office at 504-503-1040. I would invite you all to, if you're an entrepreneur, you're starting a business, you're growing your business, I think that during the pandemic, what we've seen has been like some pooling of resources and of all the providers, the service providers in various platforms. I know now NOLA BA has a fairly robust listing of all of the organizations that are working to support the community, whether you're a Black-owned business, Latino-owned business, Asian-owned business. So they've done a really great job at compiling a lot of those resource partners. But I would say that if you have any questions or, and you're looking for a guide, someone to connect you to other resources, that's something that we do very well. Like Klassi was saying, within the ecosystem, we are very connected to one another. We're literally a phone call away from one another. So if I can't help you, I can find someone who can. And whether that's a Propeller, an Idea Village, a Fund 17, an Urban League, we send a lot of our customers over to Urban League for the Contractors College if they have. We love to share and to plug in and play and connect our customers to the various resources that are here.
That's right. Mayra?
Yes, thank you again, Klassi. And please visit our website at HispanicChamberLA.com. And of course, we have programming that will serve everyone from the startup to the entrepreneur that is already established, to the young professionals. We have all the different segments in the community addressed through our networking events, through our signature events, through our workshops that are very intentional. We will be very, very diligent in working in accessing those opportunities and preparing our businesses for the infrastructure program coming down the pipeline. We have an event coming up, our town hall, which is an annual event, and it convenes all of our resource partners. We have great relationships with, Urban League, LED, SBA, et cetera. So our phone number is 885-4262, area 504. I'm always available for a phone call. You can text me, you can send me an email, and I look forward to working with you in one way or another. Again, thank you to the Urban League for this wonderful opportunity. I hope to see you at one of our programs coming up. And in the meantime, let's all continue to work together to build a more equitable community.
Thank you, Mayra. John, any resources that you have taken advantage of that you'd like to share?
I'm on mute. Urban League, I champion Urban League. Y'all have been, a life support for my company. So, I want to give y'all your roses right now with a list of programs and even even the companies y'all partner with, AT&T, Ford with their TCAP program, James Beard Foundation. They've been very helpful with reaching out to BIPOC businesses in this region, and they're continuing those efforts. So those are just a few, and I definitely missed out a lot, but I know I use a resource called Hello Alice that allows me to kind of catch the pulse and tap in on a lot of different grant opportunities. They are very efficient with how they get back and communicate with you if you've been accepted or not. And that's right. Kind of it. And the community support has been very helpful with our products being on shelf and continue to do that good work.
That's awesome. And I just want to close out this session. I have about 3 minutes. But, I like to always close with specific action steps, and I'll share some of my thoughts, and then I'll close with asking the panelists if they have any additions to this. But, we talked about, looking at the systemic changes that need to take place. What are some of the challenges we still face? What are some of the opportunities? But, one of the things that I encourage folks to do in terms of action, support your Black and Brown owned small businesses, please. And, it's buy Black, it's buy Latinx, it's buy small. That's what we need to be focused on. And so we want others to support us, but we have to support ourselves as well. So support your Black and Brown owned small businesses. If you're here, I consider yourself aware of some of the resource partners that are in the entrepreneurial development space here in the state of Louisiana. So if you are a small business owner, you should be connecting to some of the resource partners that you've heard from today. But not only that, please make sure that if you know a small business, right, please connect them to the resources that are available. As John mentioned, as Mayra mentioned, as Lindsay mentioned, there are a number of programs in partnerships that your technical assistance providers here in the state have with regional and national public and private organizations. And the way to get tapped into those programs, into those resources, is to connect with us. We do as much as we can. We're going to start doing even more on outreach. But we need to make sure that you guys get connected to this entrepreneurial ecosystem. The other thing I want to say is we also need to make sure that all of us become advocates in making sure that there are more creative supplier diversity initiatives that are put in place to increase access to contracting opportunities. We talked about it here today. Some examples are the bundling of these large contracts, looking at more equitable and transparent tier 2 programs, and also allowing for more favorable payment terms. So again, become an advocate. Also, and we talked about this, Lindsay talked about this, connecting with and contacting your state legislators, right, to ensure that equity and accountability are part of the equation on all fronts. And specifically, I want to implore you that we make sure that that happens when it comes to the infrastructure dollars as they move. And so we want to make sure that equity and inclusion are part of the equation in a really data and policy driven way. And so again, become an advocate. Become an advocate when it comes to transparency from financial institutions, right? Making sure that progress is being made to provide capital, access to capital to our Black and Brown businesses. And so there's a couple more: tax reform, immigration reform that we talked about. Again, if you need resources, please connect with us here at the Urban League of Louisiana, urbanleaguela.org. And I want to thank our panelists for such a wonderful and insightful conversation today about Black and Latinx entrepreneurship. entrepreneurship. Again, thank you for your time today. I want to make sure that everybody knows that we are in this business to support small businesses across our communities. So please reach out to us. And again, thank you, Lindsay, Mayra, and John, for your time today.